I'm going to show you real quick. Now this is the bobbin I just took out. It has some thread left on it, but I don't want to leave it to chance. The last thing I want to do is run out of thread, you know, in the middle of a stitch. So I've got a fully loaded bobbin here, and I keep 2 or 3 of them. I have 2 different colors of thread I use on this machine, and I have some loaded with black thread and white, and those are the only 2 colors I use. So I'm going to go load this, and then I'll come back when I'm gluing up the sheath in prep of stitching the main seam. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to put my my marks on to show me where I want to glue my welt in. Welt, W-E-L-T. And what the welt does is gives a triple thickness to the leather, also protects the stitches, and makes the sheath stiffer. It's an important piece. I cut it large, so what I want to do is I want to overhang here and then a little bit all the way down the edge. So when I get this glued up prior to stitching, I can belt sand everything down to one plane. So when I get that in place, all I'm going to do is take my pencil and I'm going to draw right where I want this to go, and that shows me where to stick my glue. Alright, now real quick, I'll lay this over at the other side. I'm going to make a little pencil mark here on the back side of the sheath. And that is going to be for a drainage hole. And those are important. If the sheath should get water in it, for whatever reason, it is a fishing knife, you want it to be able to drain, and you also want a little hole back there to allow some air in. So just kind of eyeballing where I want that to go. I'm going to come a little bit more inside my bend. But you just want it down somewhere toward the bottom of the sheath. That's it. That's an important little thing. I put those on all of my sheaths. Alright, so now I know where I want my glue to go. And so we're going to get started with that. This is why we didn't dye the leather on the very edge down here so much, because it's going to have to be belt sanded and re-dyed. Now one thing I did I want to show you is on the end of the welt, on this tip down here, we're going to have to fold the leather over that, and so I've just taken the belt sander and I've wedge shaped that a little bit just to give it a little more relief, so we don't have to stretch the leather out so much. And again, you just leave it and just for a few minutes until the haze appears. When the shininess goes out of the glue, it's ready to set. You just follow your pencil line down and get it stuck nice the first time. And again, this glue's job will be done just as soon as we get the stitches in place. Okay, I've applied the glue to the welt and this other side. I'm just getting some clamps ready. Just cheap little clamps, all you need. And I've also wet the leather on both sides in the area of the fold. I don't want to have to fight this leather and beg it to get down there. So now it's going to naturally want to hinge right where you've put your relief cut. You want to come up here, get your top piece put in and stuck down. Now I'm paying attention to the back side, making sure that I have allowed some hangout. So as I go, just put these little clamps on here. On the end where it's tightest, I'm going to put a big clamp, and then just some intermittent ones. And once again, we're going to leave this set for just a little bit. Then I'm going to take it out of the clamps and I'll go with the belt sander and I'm going to get all of this flushed up and then edged so I can lay out my stitch. Alright. A little bit of a race against time with this camera battery. I've got the other one in there on a charger. This is my spare. Alright, so I've got everything belt sanded down flush. All I want to do now is just trim off the feathery edge that belt sanding leaves. There. Alright, now I'm ready to lay out my stitch. And we've got a wide welt right here. So this is going to be a stress area. So I'm going to stitch down a little bit. I'm going to stitch down, over, and then down, just to reinforce this area. But to do my stitch, I'm going to start right about here. And I'm going to adjust this guide there. You just want to keep the point against the leather, just like this, and you're cutting a groove. And really this is just to give you a line to follow. I suppose you could do this in pencil. So I'm going to bring this up to the corner right there, and I'm going to stop and break that little piece off. Then I'm going to take my guide again, and I'm going to come across here just a stitch or so to about right there. Just connecting the lines there. Then I'm going to take my hand grooving tool. I'm just going to come down here about a ½ an inch, just following my other line. Just about like that. And that's just going to serve to reinforce that high stress area. Alright, I'm going to get set back up over there at the machine, and we're going to run this stitch. Alright, I'm ready. I'm going to stop the recording if I keep my eye on that battery. If I get the flashing light, I'll stop, change batteries, and then I'll continue. But just as before, I'm going to lift my presser foot, and I'm not going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start one stitch down from the end, stitch to the end, turn around and go back, and that locks my stitch. So pulling the thread tight again, down and up, and right there at the end, holding it one more time. Now we can release the thread and forget about it. So I'm going to turn the sheath around, and now I'm going to go right back through that first hole. And get this thread out of the way. My phone's telling me something. Alright, now I'm at the corner. I'm going to turn the corner. There we are. This machine has a pretty deep throat. So I'm at the corner. I'm going to put a stitch right there. And now I'm ready to take off and run down the sheath. And they suggest that you do not leave your needle in the hole when you turn, for whatever reason. Works for me. Alright, now it's just a matter of following your lines down, and take your time, one stitch at a time. As you see, this machine punches through 3 layers of 8 to 10 ounce leather with ease. And this would be an hours long job if I were doing this by hand. And this machine seems to transition from two layers to 3 with no adjustment necessary. You just want to fold down and upcycle each stitch. Don't stop halfway, you'll screw up. This machine is made with cast iron and steel parts. You're not going to hurt it. Alright, I'm almost to the end. I want to adjust a little closer to get that last stitch right there. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back 2 stitches again just to make sure we lock. Now we're going to wet form. I've taken this into the kitchen and I've soaked it pretty saturated with some hot water. Now we're going to push the knife in. It's tight going in right up there, but we want it to be. Now make sure we're seated down here, and I see it down there through the hole. Now we're just going to start forming the knife into the sheath. And it'll hold this shape after we're finished. I like to use my rubbing stick just to get that little crease there formed up. It just gives a good little pocket to receive the knife. I'm going to do it all down where that knife is going to seat in that sheath, so it takes a nice snug hold. Okay, so that is it. Now we're going to let the sheath dry outside in the sun. It'll hold this shape. This leather gets kind of doughy, I suppose. We'll pull that out. We'll set this out in the sunlight, let it dry, and then when it's all dried up, then I'm going to put some stain or dye on here and then down here, and then we're going to put this back on here. We're going to burnish this edge, and we have a finished sheath. So there it is, wet form. That's the step that really mates the knife to its sheath. Yeah, that's gonna fit in there real nice. All right, so that is sheath making. Next, we're going to be applying our logos. Get this thing ready to ship.